we're back. You're listening to IBGR, the International Business Growth Radio Network. My name is William Eastman, coming to you live from our studios in North America, just outside of beautiful downtown Richmond, Virginia. And today is Monday. This is our Monday Finance Day, where we talk about all things financial for small business owners, entrepreneurs, people in the gig economy. And my view, or my piece of that, not view, my piece of that is I'm not a financial expert, so I don't talk about things that I don't know anything about. Now, as a business owner, I know financials, but I'm not getting on the air talking about them. Rather, I'm here to talk about something I do know something about, and that is economics. And so what we've been doing all season since October is we've been talking about, as a business owner, how do I read the economy? We're at the mercy of what other people do here. So the best that we can hope for is to understand the business cycle, to be able to look at what their behavior, what governments are doing, and what impact that's going to have and what's going to happen next. If you can get there, then you can build a company that at a minimum is resilient and robust, and it doesn't matter what the politicians do unless they crash the airplane completely and totally destroy it, is that you'll get through this better than your competitors. Okay, so you need to go to the website, ibgr.network. That is ibgr.network. When you get there, go all the way to the right to resources, mouse over, you'll see show notes, click, and that'll take you to the show notes page. If it's not there on the first page, then do a search. You're looking for show 8, Global and Domestic Economic Update. And if you don't see it there on the first page, go to New Choice for Business Search, which, by the way, is on every page. Click that. And then when you come down the page where we are, we're in the third segment of today's show. Or if you're listening to this strictly as a podcast, this is episode 31, Trade Indicators. So what we did in the first one, I'm not going to cover it again, but you need to listen to podcast 29 or episode 1 here of this show, Real Economic Activity. And then the one we just previously finished, or what are the price indicators, as podcast number 30. Now, one thing I want to say here is that as I closed out, I was looking at the clock going, you got to get finished, you got to stop talking. The PPI is way up. And I typically would mark that red bad. But because of how they define it, because there are different schools of thought about what does the word inflation mean, all right? And so therefore, if you believe that inflation means when prices are abnormally low and because of there's been no demand and then suddenly people want it and the prices have shot up because more people are pursuing it, then there are parts to sell. In some schools, economic schools, that's called inflation. In others, it's not. In the school that I grew up in, and in economics, that was not called inflation. That's a different issue. So I left that black. It could be red. All right, so now let's go to episode 31, Trade Indicators. And even though we're international station, we're going to be talking about this from the standpoint of the United States because, let's face it, the United States is where everybody wants to sell their stuff. So the first one is, what are we doing to move stuff out of the U.S., okay? So what's the dollar value of goods sold to the rest of the world deflated by the U.S. CPI, all right? And so what you see here is that as we come out, now, of course, you're not looking at it, I am, is the dip here, our sales to the world is the second lowest it's been in 20 years. The only time it's been lower or was lower than 2020 during the middle of COVID was at the 2008-2009 contraction or recession the United States went through on the financial crisis, which, by the way, everybody else did. Now, what this is showing here is that our exports to the emerging world were up by 40% and now are back down to 20. So even though we're up 20%, we're down 20%. In other words, we went to 40 and we're coming down. Our export goods to advanced countries is down the same amount. It's down that amount for the world. And then finally, for the U.S., just ours is down as well. So what you can see here is our exports to the world seem to go out and fill up some holes because of COVID, and now it's retracted. Now, has it retracted because of inflation? I don't know. That you can't get that data from here. Has it gone down because we got supply chain problems? Quite possibly that could be it. Could it be the fact that we've got a lot of organizations, companies, manufacturers, service companies, etc., who have been unable to restaff at a full level because people are not going to work? It could be. But what has happened here is if we continue the trend here, by February, all the gains that we picked up from coming out of COVID will be lost. And what we did is we called this a down. All right? This is down. When you go from 40% to 20%, that's a down. Now, let's look at U.S. imports and what's coming into the country, because this is, if you're a foreign manufacturer or a foreign country, you're really interested in this. And what do we have here? Well, we have if we look at the 20-year period, we had a downturn with the internet bubble, where it took it down to about 15% in 2001. And then when we had the contraction recession of 2008, 2009, it took it down to 30%. Now, what that really means is that everybody was hammered. Okay? That means that everybody was hammered because, we weren't buying. And if we weren't buying, then you weren't producing. And then finally with COVID was equal to the internet bust of the early 2000s, and that was down about 20%. Now, we had a great recovery here. So imports coming into the United States topped off at the highest tier. Emerging countries had it at 50%. Advanced countries had it at 40%. The average was about 45%. And so what we now have is a drop of, these graphs are hard to read sometimes. We're down to about 20%. Now, we're up 20%, but it's exactly what we had before. Is we were up 20%, but over the last couple months, we're down almost 50% from our high. All right, so what's the trend line here? Okay, the trend line is month to month down. The trend line over the year, it's up. It's better than it was, but right now it's going in the wrong direction. Okay, now, way we scored that when we looked at it was we're not sure exactly if that is part of what's going on with the supply chain, and so we basically colored that black. We left that neutral, and there's another reason for that is that you don't want necessarily to have an exact trade balance, zero. However, it's not in the interest of the United States to consistently have trade imbalances. It really isn't in the interest of the United States, because what that means is that revenue, cash, wealth is leaving here and going someplace else. And so the fact that we're the world's largest economy, and China's trying to catch up, but understand that the challenge that the Chinese have is that the Chinese are really in a tough spot here because they're an export country. That is where they make their bones. And what they don't have is a domestic market. And so they're really more than other countries at the mercy of what happens, because if, in fact, the world goes down, we have a worldwide recession, it's going to hurt the Chinese far more than it's going to hurt the United States. And the reason for that is pretty simple, is that the United States is just in better shape when it comes to a domestic market. All right? Better shape when it comes to a domestic market. And so now where China is at is it's trying to grow a domestic market. I mean, if you think about, if you've been following what's going on with, I think it's Evergrande, is that, or Evergrande, I forget which it is, but that huge real estate failure that they're currently suffering in China, is that what's happened is that they built up a lot of commercial and residential housing with the expressed thought that they could build a domestic market. And therefore, there would be a greater need for that, because more and more people are going to move from the hinterlands and move out of agriculture and come into more of a manufacturing type of environment, okay? And that simply hasn't happened because China has not developed a domestic market. The reason it hasn't developed a domestic market is that its economic system is basically mercantile. And mercantile meaning that the way China operates, it makes money off of export. It does not make money off of domestic. They bring raw materials from around the world, finish them here, and send them out. Well, their system, that mercantile system, is very much a partnership between government and big business. The name for it would be crony capitalism. Of course, I don't like that term because it uses the word capitalism in the same sentence because it's not that. So the word would be fascism as an economic system, not as a political system. And that's why they're having a hard time developing their domestic market. All right, so those were the trade indicators. And by the way, I misspoke before when I said, hey, we on the U.S. imports, we had that as neutral. We have it neutral for the United States. We have it red for the world, all right? And the reason for that is simple. As I said, it's not in the United States' best interest to have too big of a trade imbalance. Now, if you go down to the bottom of the page, let me hit you with a couple things before we take our last break and come back. And that is we have, like the rest of you out there, we have Facebook and LinkedIn. We have groups that we're in. And I want to talk about our business pages first and then the groups. Facebook and LinkedIn have business pages just like you do. Our handle is the same as our URL, except that there's no decimal point or period. So IBGR Network. IBGR Network. If you're a Facebook person, we'll get you to our business page. If you're a LinkedIn person, it'll get you to our LinkedIn page. Now, and we got lots of stuff there, and we try to interact, but the challenge you have is the inability to get a two-way conversation going. The radio medium is not a good one for that. So if you go to Facebook, join our group. It's called Build My Business Today. If you're a LinkedIn person, then go there, and it's the IBGR Growth Community. The reason for the groups are simple. Here we can engage in a two-way conversation so that we can help you start faster or better. We can help you grow to your full capacity. And if you're looking to leave now the business and sell it, we can make sure we can help you get as much wealth out of the business as you deserve, as you've built into it. So those are things that I would recommend you do. And the app I'll talk about when we come back. So you've been listening to IBGR, the International Business Growth Radio Network. My name is William Eastman. This is a whole series on really a way of looking at economics where the business owner is not at the mercy of events, but is actually being proactive and building a robust company. This is show number 8, and we're doing a stop, and we're talking about what is the global and domestic economic